you can't want something more for somebody than they want it for themselves. And we're talking about alcohol use disorder. And if you have a member of your family that's suffering from, addiction, drinking constantly, you can't sit there and go and force your will upon them so that they're going to change. You can't have an argument and it sounds like want to them. You can't have a list of grievances that you have. You came in late. You're losing your job. You're not fulfilling your side of the bargain. Okay, you're falling down drunk. You're drunk in front of the children. You were driving drunk. You crashed the car. You have DUIs. You've been incarcerated. You embarrassed us at a family event. On and on and on. And if you're just going like this as a spouse or as another family member to the alcoholic in your family, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. They're not going to hear it. They're just going to hear they have a lack of approval in their life. So it's going to further their already shame and guilt. And really, the part of their brain that's just in defiance as well. They're going to be in defiance. You're not going to get the positive response that you want. So what should you do? What can you do as a family member to help the member in your family who's essentially, and I always say this to clients, they're mentally ill. They have a mental illness. They have a mental disability, and you have to put that in context. And as difficult as it is, you have to have empathy in that context. You can still have your anger and frustration and animosity. That's still going to be there because you're dealing with a lot with an alcoholic in your family. But you also have to realize and have the empathy that that person is also equally going through hell in their own right. And the thing is, it's so easy to dismiss the alcoholic in your family. Oh, he's just a drunk, or she's just a drunk, and they're just a loser. Their father was, their mother was, they come from a family of alcoholics, and you just be dismissive. Well, that doesn't help anybody. That doesn't solve the problem, and it certainly doesn't get to the core reason of why someone is drinking to begin with. People don't grow up going, God, I can't wait till I grow up so I can, have alcohol use disorder. I can't wait. That's not how it works, and it's a slow progression. And there's usually a perfect storm and a series of events that take place over years or decades to get somebody to the place where they are. It is a series of decisions, but it's also, there's so many outside forces in many cases that get somebody to that particular place. Peer pressure, family culture. You grew up in a family that everyone drank. Could be genetic predisposition, ADH1B, ALDH2 on a genetic front can give someone they can be predisposed to having an alcohol problem. They have an alcohol intake addiction problem. A lot of people don't take that into consideration. People are reactionary. And what I'm getting at is we need to be better. We need to be more educated. We need to have a better understanding of what's really going on. And I think we need to classify it as a mental disability and have that context. You can't take someone who's suffering from alcohol use disorder at face value. You can't just look at that person who's sitting on your couch with vomit down the front of them and wet soiled pants, okay, and say, oh, what's wrong with this person? They're just so irrational. They're just so out of control. No, they have a mental problem, guys, and they're covering something up. It's become their solution to whatever their trauma was, whatever their issue was. And there's as many issues as there are people and situations. Somewhere in their life, they have a lot of pain, and they're covering it up with alcohol. Is it right? Is it wrong? That doesn't even enter into it. The fact is, it is what it is. Again, I have a complete coaching program. It's really designed for not just the person suffering from alcohol use disorder, but also their family. Click on the link in the link tree. The call takes about 45 minutes. We're going to do a deep dive into what's really going on with you and your family and what's going on with that person, and really set up a game plan and a blueprint for their future. The course takes about 8 to 9 weeks, and I'm with that person for as long as they need me afterwards. Set up a call. Course is free. The call is free. The course is definitely not, but I'm looking for people who want to change their life and the life of their family. So what I'm really getting at is really from the family perspective. There's not a lot of point in forcing your will, forcing your animosity, forcing your anger, your frustration onto the alcoholic in your family, because it's going to be counterproductive. What you need to do is say, you know something, like an intervention, even in a mini intervention, have these conversations when they have a sober moment. Look, we love you, we care for you, but this is what's happening in your life, and this is how it's affecting us. We're tired of having to pick up your pieces. We're tired of having to worry about you, and the anxiety of not knowing where you are and what you're doing at all times. So we're afraid for your physical and mental health, because you're part of, you're our family member, you're my spouse, you're my son or daughter or parent. This is what we need to do. We need to take these particular actions, and it's a daily activities that you need to set up. There are things that you need to do on a daily basis. The first thing you need to do is we need to separate you from the alcohol. That's just the beginning. The physicality of it, the detox side of it needs to be taken care of, and then we need to get to work. Everything makes sense in a rational setting if you can find that person in a rational position, and if they have the ability to be accepting of that. There are many people who you won't even get to that stage. You have to have someone who will at least take the time and have the ability to admit that they have a problem. If you have somebody who's deflective, in denial, and gaslighting, it's everybody else's fault, and they're not taking any culpability, that's not something you can work with. That's something you need to part ways with, especially if you're getting physically, emotionally, or verbally abused. That's not a situation. All bets are off at that point. If you have somebody you can't work with, then you got to change the situation and part ways. Sometimes parting ways is that motivation for that person. But you got to make yourself a priority as a family member and take the right action. Don't get frustrated. Do the right thing. Communicate. And I really hope this kind of advice helps. It's really just to put it in context with what you're dealing with, because believe me, I did it for decades. Again, the memoir is called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. If you're really looking for insight on firsthand knowledge of what you go through, pick this book up. It'll resonate with you greatly. Link, again, is in the link tree. You can purchase it right off my website. There's a PayPal button there. There's an international link. It's available anywhere in the world. It's also available on Amazon. You can also find it on the ebook format for Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and the Apple website. And again, thanks for listening. Now, here's the thing. You're going to die a much earlier death if you've been drinking alcohol in any context since your teenage years. If you've been starting between the ages of, say, 13 and 20, which is the time that most people start their alcoholic career, the probability that you're going to die is exponential. In fact, statistically, men live between 47 and 53, statistically. Now, some people will die earlier. Some people like Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, the 27 Club. They were all generally alcoholics. I know Kurt Cobain killed himself, but generally it was because of drugs and alcohol, I'm sure. Then there's people like, let's say, Winston Churchill, lived to be 92, 93, drank a fifth of, I think he was into scotch every day, and he smoked cigars. He's not the healthiest guy. There are anomalies. Some people will be outsiders and live past that particular age group of 47 to 53. The vast majority of people will fall somewhere in that realm of 47 to 53 for men, and for women, it's a little bit better. It's 53 to 58. If you follow me, my wife passed away at 58 after drinking, really probably long since before I met her, but she started again in her college years, started in her teen years. And she, again, passed away as a stage 4 alcoholic at 58. Very much in line with the statistics. The vast majority of people won't see 60. Okay, I'm going to continue the conversation. And before I get all these people that say, well, my grandmother lived to be 103 and she drank 2 cases of beer every day and she was the healthiest person I ever met and she'll probably live longer than I will. Okay, before I get all these kind of ridiculous comments, it's not the point. The point is, if you drink alcohol, you're going to lose between 24 and 32 years of your life statistically against the rest of the population, you're going to lose somewhere close, teetering on a third of your life because you're drinking alcohol on a regular basis. Now, a stage 2 alcoholic is somebody who's really started a consistency. So they drink on a daily basis, or they binge drink on the weekends, and that's turned into the week. It's a progressive disease. It will grow and grow and grow. The thing is, when you get to stage 3, the problem is most people drink, and it's not about the alcohol, it's about the solution. Alcohol has become the solution to whatever their emotional issue is, the stress, the anxiety, and I mean, I've talked about this before. The reasons why people drink can be as varied as the people. There's even a genetic predisposition element for a lot of people. Family culture, trauma, those things are all the reasons why people drink. That's why alcohol covers a lot of that up. That's why people start a lot of the time, or they just are part of peer pressure. For whatever reason why people drink, consistency can create addiction. Addiction can continue and create all kinds of problems. So if it's affecting your relationships, your productivity, your job, your work, what you do for a living, really anything dealing with why you're here, really. And then, of course, your health. It's going to affect not just your liver. The liver is the most obvious, but the biggest problem is it affects your heart. High blood pressure, stress on your heart, stress on all your organs, which is stress on your heart, your kidneys, your pancreas, your intestinal tract, your esophagus, and your brain if you have Wernicke-Korsakoff, which is a form of alcohol dementia. I've had people, and I've known people that are in their 40s dealing with dementia because of their alcohol intake. They have a B1 deficiency. Their diet is atrocious, and if you're getting most of your nutrition through alcohol, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. The whole point of what we're talking about here is alcohol will shorten your life statistically. Not understanding that and putting that aside, what that's doing to your family and not just to yourself is an important element of alcohol use disorder. Again, real quick, I have a complete coaching program that's really designed for both the alcoholic and the family. Click on the link above, schedule a breakthrough call. It takes about 45 minutes. We're going to do a deep dive into what's going on with you, what are the origins of your problem, and how to solve them. The call is free, the course is not, but I'm looking for people who want to change their life and the projection and the life of their family forever. We set you up a blueprint and a road to success. I wish I had somebody like myself 20 years ago when my wife was going through this. Set up a call. Now, the other thing that's really important to understand in a late-stage alcoholic, and we're talking about late-stage alcohol use disorder in this video, is in the later stages, you will lose your family members. You're not going to be surrounded by really anybody. For the most people, they'll be surrounded by other alcoholics, other people who drink, other people who support, the sycophants that kind of support the drinking, or people who are enabling that people. Rational people, adult relationships are not going to want to stay in that situation. Spouses, children, and it gets to the point where family themselves have to protect themselves, and they have to break off from that relationship. Some people have to break off from their parents. Some parents have to break off from their children. Heartbreaking. But it gets to the point where you can't go down with the ship. You have to create boundaries, and you got to protect yourself from someone who's suffering from alcohol use disorder, because they'll tear you down, and the drama and the toxicity, it can give you post-traumatic stress syndrome as a parent, as someone close to somebody who's suffering from alcohol use disorder. Anybody that's going through this knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's a horrendous disease. It's probably the most horrendous disease that the human species has to go through. I talk to so many nurses and doctors that inbox me, and they tell me of all the patients that they've had, and ER doctors even, or surgeons, that alcohol itself is the most horrendous way to die. Speaking from personal experience, if you followed me at all, watching my wife die after spending 28 days in ICU, hooked up to kidney dialysis. She had to have a tracheotomy. She had to have breathing machines, feeding machines. They did 12 operations on her to remove the infection that was in so much of her organs, because she had fallen down a flight of stairs in her 7th rehabilitation facility, which ruptured her intestinal tract, sending fecal matter all over the internal organs. And these were organs that were already very weakened because of in the range of 40 years of alcohol use. It's not a situation you'd want to go to. She was unconscious most of the time, in a coma. When she was awake, and the short periods that she was in unbelievable pain. And it was the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life. My passion for this is so that you don't have to go through this, so your family doesn't have to go through this. And I hope this has hit home. And again, really, the last thing I want to say is the memoir that it really depicts this whole story is Amanda, Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. Click on the link in the link tree on this page. You can go to my website. There's a PayPal button. There's an international link. You can purchase this anywhere in the world. Again, it's also available on Amazon. If you want the ebook, it's available on Amazon, Apple website, and Barnes & Noble. And again, thanks so much for listening.